in the world of handmade and artisan products in terms of what's driving demand, why people are looking for it, and in and of that it's an opportunity that we haven't seen in the past as that demand has grown. My name is Colvin English, and my company is called By Hand Consulting, and I have worked in the artisan world pretty much all my life. My family had a wood carving company in Sea, and I had an import wholesale company that worked with international artisan-made product, which still exists. Called Milan. We worked in 17 countries. A company in international gift fair, and it's now called New York Now, as their director of Handmade. So I worked with all handmade products into that show. Now, my business partner and I have a consulting company, and we work with helping create market links between artisans and as they've been referred to here, the northern markets. And in a variety of ways, we work with government organizations, we work with trade groups, and with both sides. I talk a little bit about the demands in the marketplace affecting handmade, and then Allison Garofalo, who is now the manager of all of the handmade divisions of the New York International Gift Fair, New York Now, will be talking to you about that show specifically and some of the opportunities there. So, handmade in the market today. So the U.S. market right now is the trend for buying artisan product, the trend for having artisan product is at an all-time high. And there are a number of reasons for that. We're going to look at 6 of those reasons that are the primary influence and what's helping artisan product and handmade product be positioned well in the marketplace. First and foremost, our market's growing. They're recently over for us. We're seeing the consumer confidence is improving. So not only is the recession over, but people are willing to let go of their money. And that's what the key to it is it doesn't matter if the economy is growing if we're not spending money. So U.S. consumers are feeling much more comfortable, and they're allowing that money to pass on through the system. So in 2014, retail sales grew. Holiday sales specifically, which is the largest portion of our market, is the fourth quarter. Grew by over 4.5%, and they are growing now. So we're seeing an increase in 2012, 2.5%, and now we're up to 4.5%. Not only is growth rate increase, and here's where that consumer optimism is at a high. Specifically, here's our devastating effects of 2008 that you can see here, 2008, 2009. One of the reasons we look specifically at the U.S. market is because it does drive the entire global economy. To give you some context for that, this is retail sales, so this does not include open houses and industrial products. This is just U.S. retail sales. Is $425 billion. And that represents about 25% of the world's buying power, with about 8% of the world's population. So the U.S. consistently runs 8 or 9%, 7, 8% of the world's population, with 25% of its buying power. Europe is similar size, slightly larger population-wise. They run 8 to 9% of the world population. They also run about 25% of the world's buying power. So here you have 16% to 17% of the population, 50% consumer purchases. buy higher end goods. So we are the demographic consumption that we're seeing in U.S. products is coming at the higher end of the spectrum. We're not seeing it as much in the mass market. We're seeing it much more in the upper mainstream and the luxury market. Affluent customers of $100,000 per family or more. So this is what we consider to be the affluent customer, or these discretionary income to spend. When we start getting into sort of the reality of this, we're looking at 10% of U.S. households, 36%, and they account for half of the total consumer spending. So remember, we just said 8% of the world is responsible for 25% of the buying in the world. 10% of that 8% is responsible for half of 0.8% consumer. So very people are controlling large spending, are primarily focused in the higher end of the marketplace, $100,000 or more. So in our traditional market pyramid, we've got our price and our quality. As price and quality increase, our volumes across here, our volume decreases. Very traditional market pyramid. In general, handmade falls into this up half. That's where we normally see it, because by nature, handmade products are going to be expensive. So we want to make sure that the quality matches that price, matches the price and the design innovation, the customer service, the delivery, to make sure that we're in this area. But what we're seeing now is this luxury market, this high-end luxury market is opening up to us for handmade products. We're starting to see a weariness on really drives the luxury market, which is brand names. We're sort of done with all the brand names. Everything's got a logo on it. Everything's got Prada, Gucci, everything's labeled. And we're tired of that. But we still want that quality. We still want that design innovation. We still want those leading trends to come through. But we're willing to look for smaller producers. We want the exclusivity. You know, when we get logos on everything from tracksuits to cars to everything, we get tired of it and it no longer feels exclusive. So this is a great opportunity for artisans and artisan product to come and fill in that market niche. And when we think about those luxury brands and what has made them successful, you know, think of your Salvatore Ferragamo. What's written right beneath it? Handcrafted, handmade. We see all of those sorts of things. Couture clothing, all about handmade, all about the artisan, all about the craftsperson in terms of big selling features. So this consumer, this upper mainstream, this luxury consumer who's looking for new things to buy is accustomed to hearing the words handmade, hearing the words artisan. And now they're willing to start buying things, really, the association of those well-known luxury name brands. Social impact purchasing. Consumers increasingly are caring about their money. Is what I am spending making a difference in a planet positive or a people positive way? So 30% of consumers are expecting out of goods and services. that they buy from socially responsible businesses. I think this is fascinating, and combined with one of the next slides, MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, recently did a study with Banana Republic. So Banana Republic is a mainstream, higher-end mainstream store focused on apparel. They changed the label, the identical product. They changed the label from style-centric to socially conscious. Just the products. They are to know the social impact. Much of this in the fashion industry has been driven by the tragedies of Bangladesh. But people are out of much more conscious of how their purchases are impacting the world. So they increased sales 14%. Very consistent. Well, 3/4 of people are willing to pay $25 for a $20 garment that's certified as being made under fair labor conditions. So you can drive 14% higher sales, 25% higher price. This doesn't have high quality. You can drive a higher price, 25% higher price, and 14% higher sales. When you combine those two things, it's products that are made under fair trade conditions be competitive in the marketplace. We often hear, well, I can't compete our higher. Well, if you are presenting, we're seeing the same in that the majority of customers are willing to pay more in a way that is feasible. This plays off of that content in commerce. So content marketing, and this is about educational material, really telling your story. And telling your story in a way free, accessible, high quality educational content. Like we say here, marketing is, but it's different than simply a static photo. It's different than simply building something up to say you have to have this because it's going to make you cool. It's going to make you feel good. This is about telling you the story. We're seeing a tremendous amount of video associated with this. And this goes to our YouTube generation. We have an entire generation of consumers that have grown up being marketed to videos on websites all over. We're seeing videos on manufacturers' websites, we're seeing on producer websites, we're seeing videos on consumer websites, we're seeing them on everything in between. And it's all going back to telling the story, creating the content, giving me the transparency, letting me know who you're working with. That transparency side, that storytelling side, also has opened up an opportunity that we haven't seen before, even as recently as 10, 15 years ago. No one in the retail world would tell you who their suppliers were. Everything was done, under the shade of night. Well, do you work with, I could go and see Lon and say, well, are you working with Neiman Marcus? I'm not allowed to tell you, and because they had these exclusivity agreements because they didn't want people using their resources. But now what's happened is these large organizations, because consumers are looking for this information, she's the one with the story. Macy's doesn't have a story. They're very big retailers, but the consumer wants that story. So now what we're seeing is that that producer brand is going all the way through to the end user so that the storytelling can follow it. But it also means that that social audit is much, much higher because people are then going to look at the individual company and see what's happening with them. So marketing is telling the world you're a rock star. Content marketing is showing the world that you're a rock star. Open and transparent. US consumers have a thirst for authentic brands. Story connects place and origin. So authentic, when we think about authentic brands, these are all the catchwords that we're seeing in the marketplace today. So authenticity is where the narrative connects the consumer to other people and places, adding a personal and experiential component to a tangible good and giving it an aura of authenticity. We want the real. When you think of authentic, one of the best examples that I have come up with for this is, what do you want when you buy? When you say, I'm going to buy a pair of blue jeans, what do you mean? If you say authentic, I want Levi's. Could even be more specific. I want Levi's 501 button fly blue jeans. I want the big E Levi's, not the little E Levi's on the logo. So, what is the authenticity? Where does that product come from? I don't want to buy lacquerware from Southern Africa. That's not where it's made. I want to buy it from Asia, where it's made, where the authentic story. And we're seeing more and more that people are taking the time to really understand where a tradition came from, where something was created. Do I want a Suzanne print, or do I want a Suzanne from Central Asia? So people are looking at this. This is becoming more and more important. The consumers feel this desire for a real in an increasingly staged world. This is our move away from manufactured products. We want something that is imperfectly perfect. We want to see the hand in it. We want to know. It doesn't mean that imperfect doesn't mean it's a lower quality. Imperfect means it's unique. Perfect means it's not the same as yours, even though it may have come from the same place. So we want an imperfect or a perfect imperfection. So all of these, like here, you can see, doesn't look like it came straight out of a factory. We understand that the nature of handmade, the nature of authentic products is that everyone's going to be slightly different. Culture in and of itself is being recognized as a driver for growth. This is important because this is one of the advantages that you have in your product offering, is the history of it. Where did it come from? Why are you to our world? As we become increasingly homogenized, what we're seeing is people are looking for the special. The U.S. is a big example. We have, one of the things I'm German or I'm French, then we do have that desire. The world trade of creative goods and services totaled $624 billion, and that is increasing rapidly with an 8.8 increase annually. What this means is this is about just offering those new ideas, just coming from your history, just bringing forth that. This isn't even about product. This is just about that cultural concept. I told them yesterday, this picture both intrigues me and disturbs me. It's just too perfect. Overboard. So, let's look at some companies that we admire in the marketplace and what they're doing. Some of them you may be familiar with, some of them you may not. So West Elm. West Elm is part of the Williams-Sonoma family of companies, which is a huge, huge retail presence in the United States. It's West Elm, Pottery Barn, Williams-Sonoma, Pottery Barn Kids, all sorts of different ones. West Elm is targeted at the millennial generation and slightly older, sort of millennial through Generation X. So coming from the young side on up to the middle-aged side, like myself. So they have made a commitment to $35 million directly to artisans who use handcraft techniques. This is a small percentage of what West Elm does, but it's a very, very important aspect of their marketing programs, and it's very, very important to their internal personnel. Jim Brett, who's the president of West Elm, this is something that he is very passionate about himself. He goes and visits artisan groups all over the world before they work with them. They have specifically started looking at how do they measure their impact, which is also something that we're seeing in the marketplace today. I want specific quantitative numbers as a consumer that tell me what it is that you are doing. This generalized idea of I'm helping the world is no longer enough. Tell me exactly what it is that you've done. And we don't have to have extraordinary numbers. We want real numbers. We want to understand that real impact. So 20 artisan groups, 15 countries, long-term commitments of 3 to 5 years, impacting 4,500 artisan workers and 18,000 family members. West Elm is a huge company. They're under tremendous pressure on a social audit. I can be fairly sure that these numbers are underestimated to make sure that if somebody is conducting that social audit on them, that they're safe. So it's not necessarily about the numbers, but it's about knowing that they exist, and it's about having a true and measurable impact and communicating that to your customer. So this is from Jim Brett. There's a real nostalgia to return to the time of the maker, a time when people knew who made their products both here and in the US and globally. This is part of this general trend that we've seen since 2008, and even prior to that, when we started in on all of these wars all over the world. We started this trend of nesting. You know, everybody quit spending money, they went home, they stayed in their houses, and we called that nesting. They were creating the world around them, and they were cocooning themselves into their houses. Then as they sort of started realizing things weren't necessarily as bad as they thought, they started doing things like, if I'm going to be home, I'm going to start knitting, I'm going to start sewing. Then they realized that they don't like to knit, they don't like to sew. So maybe I can find somebody else who's going to make me feel that way. So there was this little trend for a while of, I want something new, but I want it to look like my grandmother made it for me. Because that still made me feel secure, still made me feel safe. Well, all of that falls into that handmade and artisan work. And then that started carrying, and that's carried on. This handmade trend, we see it as being a big trend, not something that's just going to die away. Because people are truly appreciating things. And all of these have led from one to the next. And what we're seeing are people like Jim Brett, who is probably in his 40s, don't you think? Yeah, probably in his 40s. So people such as myself who have grown up with this social and ecological consciousness, that now that they're in positions of power, they're using that power in the best possible way they can in order to effect change. So he can't change the entire philosophy of Williams-Sonoma, but he can change his little portion of it. He can make a difference within his organization, which is going to continue to educate a new generation and make those changes cascade into something larger. Macy's, one of the largest retailers in the US, huge chain and department store, appealing to the has the Heart of Haiti collection. So the Heart of Haiti collection is a fair trade collection that is focused, that started after the earthquake in Haiti. It is a continuation of a social responsibility program that Macy's has, where they worked with peace baskets out of Rwanda. This is something that Macy's has had to change the way that they buy in order to be able to work with this group. They have forced it into their system because it's so important to them to use, and it's important to them, to the buyers specifically. I've met the buyers, it's very important to them personally. In terms of the organization, it's a very small percentage of what they do, but it adds a lot to their overall marketing plan and program. And but to give you an idea of their buying, Macy's never provides a deposit. They provide a deposit. They work with products that they can have widespread distribution on. They own one store in their flagship store in Manhattan because this organization cannot fill the supply line needed to cover all of the Macy's stores. But they promote this on their website. They promote it in a lot of their advertising because their buyers are looking for it. The buyers are saying, why should I work with Macy's? What is Macy's doing for the world to make the world a better place? Eden, you can't really see this very well, but these are Tuareg jewelry pieces. So Eden, their focus is taking traditional craft techniques of the highest quality, sterling silver, semi-precious stones, and reinventing into a latitude is a great appealing to that adventure traveler person who may not be able to get out and go on their own, but they want to bring that feeling home with them. You can shop by destination. Where do you want to go? What story do you want to hear? They do a lot with blogging. They do a lot with telling the story of not only the specific company that's producing, but of the specific item that you are looking at. So now I'm going to let Allison talk to you a little bit about some of the marketing opportunities in the U.S. And then we'll have some time for questions.
I'm at a company called Emerald Expeditions. Emerald Expeditions is a trade show company based in the U.S. We create face-to-face and online buying, selling, and networking platforms through event management and production. The particular show I work on, we have shows across the entire United States, everything from antique shows to military shows. I work on New York Now, which used to be called the New York International Gift Fair, so you may be familiar with that name. It's the same show, it's just been rebranded. And I oversee all the handmade collections. There are 3 handmade collections within the show. Colvin mentioned during his presentation, the demand for handmade goods, particularly in the U.S., is quite strong. So I'm going to talk a little bit about 2 opportunities, one in particular that's really focused towards this group for you in the States to show products. First, just to give a brief overview of the show, it's 3 market collections. There's the home, lifestyle, and handmade. The show itself has been in existence for over 90 years. When the show was rebranded a few years back, we did make some changes. We used to have 10 plus sections of the market. It made it a little difficult for the buyers to walk the show. We now rebranded it and have 3 collections to make it very easy. Twice a year, it's always mid-August, and then it's in the end of January, beginning of February timeframe. It has over 2,800 companies participating twice a year. Of those companies, 100,000 products are represented within 400 product categories. This is a slide from the past winter show, which just concluded a few months back. This shows a lot more of the build-up displays. Some of these are larger, but we do have a lot of flexibility with the size of displays from 5 by 10 all the way up to the large country pavilions, which are 3,000 plus square feet. So as I mentioned, there's 3 distinct collections in handmade. Today I'm going to 3 distinct collections at New York Now. Today we're just going to focus on handmade. So Handmade at New York Now as a whole features over 600 companies. It's a collection of made in the USA and global artisan products. For 30 plus years, Handmade has offered buyers an extensive selection of handcrafted items across such categories as tabletop, ceramics, jewelry, home decor, fashion accessories, and apparel. It's expertly curated. It is a juried section of the market. So all the products tend to be design forward contemporary craft, and they feature traditional global resources and export artisan production capabilities. So the top category, handmade, designer, maker, most likely is not appropriate for people here today, but I'll briefly speak about it. It showcases 350 makers across all categories and focuses on limited production and quality craftsmanship. Products within here stand out for their originality, creativity, and quality, creativity and innovation. Most, if not all, of the smaller companies here are made in the USA, based in the USA. We do have a few country pavilions here, Germany, United Kingdom, and France. They have a small featured producer within that pavilion, but again, it's very limited production. And it's all US. The next two sections, we'll focus on some more. Handmade global design, made appropriate for some companies here. It is the handmade section of the show. Excuse me. It has 150 international producers, craft resource here, and it tends to be a U.S. wholesaler. So it's not the actual producer showing here. It's a U.S. wholesaler distributor showing products from overseas, but they're warehousing the product in the States. They're selling at a U.S. wholesale price. There are some companies limited here who participate in that section. Not the traders who spoke the other day. I'm sure many of you have met with them throughout your time here. They show within that section because they have that capability. The final section here is something that should be the most appropriate, and it's called Artisan Resource. Artisan Resource, we're going to focus on the most. It features over 150 overseas companies, and it's a production sourcing venue for overseas artisan enterprises. It connects US-based importers with international producers and exporters. In more detail, I think it's important to touch upon why it's so important to focus on handmade at New York Now. We found that the demand in handmade product continues to increase in the US as customers seek handmade, ethically sourced products. They want to buy something that they feel is giving back to the community, something that has meaning. This is something that we've seen throughout the last few years becoming stronger and stronger, and it started as a trend, is now really becoming a way that people live and decide to spend their money and buy. This is just a quote that we have from the creative director at WFTO, which speaks to the often working with handmade goods. So this is from Vanessa Holden. It really is something we think about a lot. It's a word that is thrown around way too easily. When we talk about authenticity, we're very serious about getting as close to the source as we can in terms of either the craft or the execution. As Colvin mentioned, WFTO is quite a large buyer within the show. So global handmade and artisan resource, both global craft, but what's the main difference? A lot of people get a little confused saying, well, if I have handmade crafts, how do I know where to go? The main difference is in the distribution channel. Handmade global design exhibitors sell directly to US specialty retailers, US wholesale. Artisan resource sells to US product designers, importers, and distributors at an FOB price. Handmade global design has addressed global craft for US wholesale equivalent prices. All companies have to be juried in. This is some of the criteria that the jury looks for approval. If for some reason you're not recommended for that section, there are other sections of the market that we can recommend you for. Some of the artisan groups that currently show here, as I mentioned, at the traders, Raymond Lilly, Aid to Artisans, Aid Through Trade, and many others. So if you have US distribution, this is a perfect location within the market for you. But where does that leave many of the companies who don't have US distribution? So about 10 years or so back, I've been with the company for 11 years. And since I've been with the company, we've had more and more applications coming in, switching gears more from the gift industry towards more homemade products. But a lot of those companies were overseas producers who had no US distribution. So they would either come to the show, even though we told them it would not be appropriate because they're going to get smaller orders and not do well and be disappointed, or they wouldn't come at all, but we'd be losing out on a very large segment of the market. So prior to 2012, Colvin and his company, By Hand Consulting, came to our organization and pitched the idea of doing an export show. The sales director the show director at the time loved the idea, and we started partnering with By Hand Consulting to launch Artisan Resource. So in 2012, we launched the show. It's the first ever US trade show focused on overseas vendors, offering artisan and handmade products and custom design, private label production capabilities at export terms. Unlike Handmade section of the show, which requires US distribution, this is for overseas country of origin pricing. Artisan Resource in New York now was launched in hopes to increase access to markets for artisans around the world and seeks to link artisans in global markets in order to increase incomes and standard of living of individuals. This past winter show, we shifted gears. The Javits Center in New York City, we're familiar with it. It's where the main event is held. We've always been a sold out venue, so we've had side locations, and we used to be on what was called Pier 94. They completed renovations at the venue. We're now all under one roof. So this past winter was the first time we were within the main Javits Center. We had about 100 companies exhibiting from 30 countries. But with 3 months to go to the August show, we've already exceeded that. We have about 150 companies, and we're carving out new companies still there, which is wonderful. Product collections range from home decor to fashion accessories, tabletop and jewelry. So all the product categories are perfectly in line with other products you'll see at New York now. And all exhibitors are really carefully screened. So everyone is juried into the show. We want to make sure that you have export demand, that you have sustainable products, design innovation, cultural preservation. These are all really important factors that we look at before contracting new companies into the show. This is just general. This is not every country represented in the show, but these are the main countries within the Handmade collection where we see the most producers and wholesale companies working with. So we don't see your country up here. It's not that we don't want to work with you. It's just we don't have a large representation from that section. So we're always looking to bring more and more countries in. So we did a survey a few shows back to all the attendees and buyers at the show and all the exhibitors as well, asking them, why do you choose to do our show? And here are some of the results. 89% choose to do the show because it's here that they close more than 20% of their annual sales. 80% told us that they meet with at least 80 new buyers each show. And then 50% have seen great success in reorders from buyers they have met through the show. So those are pretty strong numbers. So now you know the reason to exhibit, why exhibit, who your peers would be, but why should you be there? What kind of buyers are you going to meet? Is an appropriate venue for you? New York Now's Handmade collection has always been a must-attend event for buyers looking for newest trends, particularly in handcrafted products. This slide breaks down the differences between who walks Handmade global design and who walks Artisan Resource. It's not to say an online store won't go to Artisan or a designer won't go to Handmade. It's just typically these are the type of buyers. Artisan Resource, you're going to get those larger direct import retailers who can order more volume. You're going to get those designers who want to do a custom line with you and do future projects as well. Whereas in Handmade Global Design, it's going to be a much lower volume. They can do those smaller orders because they're shipping straight from the States. Just some quotes from some of our top retailers. West Elm, Pottery Barn, Viva Terra has been a strong supporter of the show. The quote here, one of Viva Terra's goals since the beginning has been to advance arts and craft programs that will provide income, healthcare, and education through fair trade. So again, it's not just a trend. All these major retailers are really putting efforts behind enforcing fair trade and purchasing fair trade. Colvin already spoke about Macy's. Macy's is another large buyer within the show. The work that they've been doing with the Heart of Haiti post 2010 earthquake has been amazing. Through this collaboration, all the artisans receive half of the wholesale price for each item, which allows them obviously to rebuild, pay school fees, feed and clothe their children and whatnot. But to see such a large retailer like this dedicating efforts, as Colvin said, they're probably not making much off of this, but it's putting that story behind them and really promoting it. So this is an important segment of the market. So as I mentioned, all other sections of the show are U.S. wholesale. So by putting artisan resource alongside the show, we automatically have a built-in buyer base of about 2,600 companies. Because these current are looking for new suppliers. For example, Jonathan Adler has been in our accident design section for many years. They partner with Guaira, one of our companies from Peru. Raven and Lily, they're in our Handmade global design section. They've done work with many companies. One in particular is Zardozi from Afghanistan, who's within Artisan Resource. And then there's some others. Our Technica, Our Technica is in our accidental design section. They have done work with Get Paper and Paul as well. So it's a great way to not only meet all the buyers that come for the wholesale section, but a great way to have that built-in database of new companies looking to source from you. And then designers. Artisan Resource is unique because of the fact that designers are coming looking specifically to work and collaborate with you for their own designs. Buyers from Kenneth Cole, Donna Karen, they all walk the show, each show. So they are there, but you know, those big names and those are great, but there's also so many other designers who come and walk who are really passionate about this and wanting to work with these companies. A great example of this is each show we partner with the Design Council, and the Design Council is a group of designers come, they walk the show. We have a whole Design Council day, and they talk with the exhibitors, the Artisan Resource exhibitors. They give advice, and sometimes it even turns into actual collaborations. Quick overview of just some of the companies that come. In the pamphlet, which hopefully everyone received, is a top 100 buyer list, so a little more extensive list of the major buyers that come. But again, it brings about 30,000 throughout the 4-day event, so it is a very large, well-attended event. And then as part of that survey we did earlier, we also heard from buyers and why they choose to shop Handmade over other markets within the US. 94% attend to discover new products, 88% attend to find new suppliers, 66% to see existing suppliers, and then 50% say that they discovered and purchased more than half of their annual inventory at New York Milan. So outside of exhibiting, you come and you get your booth and you exhibit and meet with the buyers. What else is there? And we feel that education, especially with Artisan Resource, is imperative. One, many companies are coming to the US or they've never been to a trade show. So to put them in the middle of New York City and say, go ahead, is a recipe for disaster. We understand that many people need that help. So take education very seriously. So this is a listing of some of the seminars that we did last show. So as an Artisan Resource exhibitor, automatically you are invited to a pre-show webinar series, which is held about a month or two prior to the show. Ready, set, go, prepare for a successful Artisan Resource experience. And it's during this time that we discuss everything from how to talk with a US buyer, how to make a marketing list, how to make your FOB list, booth design, just all these different factors that, you know, even how to make a business card, some things that may seem so simple, but some of these companies coming are just really basic knowledge that they need to have. So this is all discussed pre-show to get them ready. And then of course we're there if they have any questions throughout the cycle prior to coming to the show. Once on site, we have an race throughout the 4-day show. This upcoming show, I believe we have 5 or 6 sessions. One of the sessions we're looking to discuss WFTO and FTF, have some members speaking there. they all address global craft, and they address the buyer end and the exhibitor end. So it's all included. It's all part of the package. These are not charged seminars. So it's a great add-on.
To extend the say to UPN.
And yes, sorry.
Yes, but
No worries.
Did I just
So
read
other opportunities, we have a sustainability display, free to all exhibitors. You can submit your product and it shows, where your booth is. It's direction there. You can promote yourself for free, which is always good. We have product displays throughout the show floor and in the lobby, another free opportunity. And then of course paid opportunities, which we won't get into. Should you decide to exhibit with us, and you wanted to reach a larger audience by doing like an email blast to 50,000 buyers, that's an opportunity. So that's it. The upcoming show is in January, twice a year. I know I talk really fast, so if you have any questions, you can always email me, come talk to me. I'll be here through Thursday. Hope to see some of you there.
Are there any quick questions? We're just preventing you from going to lunch. So
I'll try and make it quick. So Allison,
Yeah.
for you, you talked about the difference between artists and resources and like the handmade section is lower volume, but the artist resources higher volume. Resources more like time custom orders or something like that. So I'm just wondering because I so I'm just wondering if there's more resources.
So, and you can chime in too, but a lot of the things that come to artists and resource are capable of larger volume. So get paper, for example, it seems like such a small company. It's a little 5x10 stamp. If you, there's all packaging for the body shop. So they have a network backbone of artisan groups large enough to do this volume. We've seen a lot of, so customers do come here late. I'm going to point you out long. CraftLink here has done the show several times, so that there is an opportunity to keep the relationship going and meet new buyers as well.
Right.
There are also some groups that will straight out say, I will never be able to get this in time, and they can do a smaller order. And they get to build up their, so it's a lot about relationship building and working, as well as custom production.
I think I would say the reverse of what you're thinking. I think the artist and resource relationships probably have a tendency to be longer served than the relationships to global handmade. The global handmade relationships are only, with the artist and resource relationships are looking for experts, for people to develop a long-term relationship with. Many times that involves custom production. And many of their customers are actually global handmade. So, and this will have a tendency to last longer, in fact, decades often. Whereas often the retailer relationships only last as long as the product is fresh and new and exciting, and then they'll go to a new retailer. So I think that there definitely is an opportunity for long-term relationships. Macy's is not a one-off in this particular case. I mean, they've been working with me for 5 years. So there, it just depends on the nature of the relationship. So I think you'd be surprised at how long some of those relationships are. Other questions?
Oh, sure, go ahead. So you talked about how handmade or identifying a product as handmade and exclusivity. But with the label fatigue that you're talking about, how consumers are sick and tired of label, I feel like it's adding another label.
Well, I didn't say label fatigue, I said brand fatigue. So So people are getting tired of brand naming, the brand name. So that hang tag is giving you a few keywords, no more than 3 sentences, bigger than a business card, and it can lead to more for the consumer that is more conscious and the consumer that wants more. Hang tag is enough. And then has a website that leads me to a more extensive social consciousness brochure or fair trade methodology or any of that sort of thing. The majority of consumers, that's enough for them, those 2 or 3 sentences. So it's not label fatigue, it's brand fatigue. So,
About the corporate buyers.
well, you don't separate out fair trade buyers, I believe, for the New York show. But fair trade buyers, so something I would caution you on, and we've heard a lot of this. Even I've heard people talking about this even at this event. Well, fair trade marketing is a valuable opportunity for you, and fair trade buyers are very, very loyal. The reality of it is success in the marketplace is going to come back to your product offering. And fair trade in and of itself in the United States is, again, a valuable market segment, but you don't sell things based on fair trade. You sell them based on the product. Products are sold in product categories. You do not go out and buy a fair trade. You go out and buy a fair trade coffee or a fair trade blouse or a fair trade ceramic. It still has to be the product category. So buyers are an important market segment, but if you want to be successful in the U.S. market, you have to look much more broadly than that, and understanding that the product still has to speak for itself. It's going to be competitive.
We do scan, but we don't separate out to fair trade specific. But we do in a lot of our outreach and marketing outreach, we're promoting buyers, so it is getting out to the correct buyers.
I think, did Renee say it?
So Renee Bowers, the Fair Trade Federation, she has a section in Global Handmade. Not everyone is located there because not everyone chooses to be within that aisle, but throughout the entire New York Now show, she has 55 of her companies. And for the upcoming show, I believe it's 12. We have 12 WFTO companies within Arts and Resource. So it is growing. And we're now speaking with Rudy.
They are not all concentrated in one place. There is a concentration in Global Handmade, but we also trade in personal accessories, we have them in home, we have them in other areas of the show because they want to be where their buyers are. So if I have a home buyer, I want to be in the home division, regardless of whether or not my product is here.
And then they're promoted through Renee as to where they're located.
And I would say the retailers for Fair Trade Federation, the majority of them to the New York National. You have to forgive me on New York International. I started the show when I was 20, and I am 46. So it's 50 hard for me to change the name.
And that's kind of what I was going to ask your question. Fair trade buyers at these shows are generally fair trade federation.
Right.
So those, while I would never label a product,
And the Fair Trade Federation, we work with the Fair Trade Federation, but the Fair Trade Federation also is very good internal documents that tell you where to find the members of those groups throughout the show, not just in Global Handmade or in Arts and Resources. So Other questions? Everybody ready to come to New York? Everybody ready to come to the US?
If anyone is interested in the global handmade section, I do have some flyers up here. You're welcome to.
And from the standpoint, just also one of the things that I want to note, because I think Allison and I are so used to talking about it. When we talk about 30,000 buyers in New York now, just so you know, this is not a public show. So there's our store owners. It is purely a trade show. There are no public days. So those 30,000 buyers are all people who are buying for stores or for them. Okay. Thank you.
Just one question, what is the list of the,
Make sure you
has
signed in
everyone
class.
signed?